In 2019 and 2020, the Lower Mekong region experienced one of the worst droughts in recorded history. Rivers ran low, fish stocks collapsed, rice harvests failed. Millions of people who depend on the river faced acute water shortages. Upstream, in China, satellite data analyzed by researchers at Eyes on Earth showed that Chinese reservoirs were holding significantly more water than normal for that period. The water was there. It was not being released. China denied any connection between its dam operations and the downstream drought. The Tibetan Plateau is the highest landmass on Earth. It covers an area larger than Western Europe. From its glaciers and lakes flow 10 of Asia's largest rivers: the Mekong, the Yangtze, the Yellow River, the Brahmaputra, the Indus, the Irrawaddy, the Salween, the Ganges tributaries, the Amu Darya tributaries, the Tarim. These rivers flow into China, India, Bangladesh, Myanmar, Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, Pakistan, and Afghanistan. Combined, these countries hold approximately 2 billion people. All of them depend to varying degrees on water that originates in Chinese-controlled territory. The countries downstream from Chinese-controlled rivers include some of America's most critical strategic partners. Vietnam and Thailand are key economic and security relationships for the United States in Southeast Asia. India is the world's largest democracy and America's primary strategic counterweight to China in Asia. India and Pakistan, both nuclear-armed states, share river systems whose headwaters originate in Tibet. Water scarcity between nuclear states is not a development problem. It is a national security problem. The United States has recognized this. The Lower Mekong Initiative was established in 2009 specifically to address water security in the region. The initiative does not include China. So let's go upstream, to the dams, to the reservoirs, to the infrastructure that turned a geographic advantage into a strategic instrument. China has built more dams than any other country in history, more than 90,000 dams across its territory. On the Mekong alone, which China calls the Lancang, China has constructed at least 11 major dams on the upper section of the river. More are under construction or planned. The Three Gorges Dam on the Yangtze is the largest hydroelectric power station in the world. But Three Gorges is a domestic dam. The dams that matter geopolitically are the ones on rivers that cross international borders. Each of China's dams on the Mekong holds water in its reservoir. Each dam can release or withhold water at the operator's discretion. China operates those dams. China sets the release schedule. China does not share its operational data with countries downstream. In 2020, researchers at Eyes on Earth, a satellite analysis firm, published a study that analyzed water flow data from the upper Mekong alongside satellite imagery of Chinese reservoirs. Their finding, during the drought of 2019 and 2020, when the lower Mekong countries experienced record low water levels, Chinese dams upstream were holding water at levels significantly above normal. The study was funded in part by the U.S. State Department. It was peer-reviewed. It was published. China disputed the methodology. China did not provide its own hydrological data to allow independent verification. What is documented? The lower Mekong ran critically low. The fishing harvests collapsed. The rice crop was damaged. Millions of people who depend on the river were affected. What is disputed? Whether the Chinese dam operations made it worse than it would have been. What is not disputed? China had the water. China chose not to release it. Countries downstream had no recourse. The Brahmaputra River begins in Tibet as the Yarlung Sangpo. It flows east through the plateau, then makes one of the most dramatic geographic turns on Earth. bending south around a mountain and descending through a gorge that is deeper than the Grand Canyon. It enters India. It crosses Bangladesh. It empties into the Bay of Bengal. More than 200 million people depend on it for water, food, and flood control. China has announced plans to build the largest hydroelectric dam in history at the Great Bend of the Yarlung Tsangpo, precisely where the river begins its descent into India. The dam would generate approximately 60 gigawatts of power, 3 times the capacity of 3 gorges. India has protested. Bangladesh has expressed concern. China has not committed to any binding agreement on water sharing, advance notification of dam operations, or hydrological data sharing. The dam is not hypothetical. It is approved. Construction has begun. When it is complete, China will have the ability to control the flow of water into the most densely populated river delta on Earth. In 1997, the United Nations adopted the Convention on the Law of Non-Navigational Uses of International Watercourses. The convention established principles for sharing transboundary rivers: equitable use, no significant harm to downstream states, information sharing, dispute resolution mechanisms. China voted against it. The convention came into force in 2014. It has 37 states parties. China has not ratified it. India has not ratified it. The Mekong River Commission was established in 1995 to manage the lower river. Its members are Cambodia, Laos, Thailand, and Vietnam. China is not a member. China participates as a dialogue partner with no binding obligations and no requirement to share operational data from its dams. There is no international body with authority to compel China to release water, share hydrological data, or compensate downstream countries for damages caused by dam operations. The water flows downhill. The law does not follow. China controls the source. 2 billion people are downstream. There is no treaty that binds China to share. The dam China plans to build on the Brahmaputra would be the largest hydroelectric project in history. It would sit precisely at the point where the river transitions from Chinese territory to Indian territory. At that point, the river drops more than 2,000 meters in elevation over a short distance. The energy potential is enormous. So is the leverage. A dam at that location would allow China to control the volume and timing of water entering India and Bangladesh. In a flood year, releasing too much, too fast, could worsen flooding downstream. In a dry year, withholding water could intensify drought. India has no military option to prevent the dam's construction. India has no legal mechanism to compel information sharing. India has no treaty right to the water at all. The dam is being built. Water is different from every other resource this series has mapped. Cobalt can be substituted. Rare earths can be mined elsewhere. Even oil has alternatives. Water cannot be substituted. You cannot eat without it. You cannot drink without it. Agriculture is impossible without it. When a country controls the source of another country's water, it controls something more fundamental than oil, more essential than rare earths, more irreplaceable than any mineral this series has discussed. The 13 episodes of this series have mapped systems where a resource is controlled by an entity that did not create it, but positioned itself to extract leverage from it. In every case, the leverage was exercised through legal or quasi-legal means. Water is the same. Except water is not a supply chain that can be rerouted. It is a river. It flows downhill. It flows from Tibet. It flows through countries that need it to survive. If China controls the source of the water that 2 billion people need to survive, and there is no treaty that binds China to share it, what protects them from the decision to close a gate?